Right now, on to the point. Governor Newsom's former chief of staff arrested and facing federal charges, including fraud, the alleged scheme, and who else is allegedly involved. Tonight, the shutdown showdown on Capitol Hill. When could benefits return and federal workers be paid again? Newly released Jeffrey Epstein emails spark new questions tonight about connections to President Trump and changes in change.
Let me be crystal clear. The penny remains legal tender.
The U.S. Mint says goodbye to the penny, the reason behind its demise.
Well, if you haven't heard already tonight, the government is one step closer to ending this shutdown. The House passed a funding bill about an hour ago. So coming up a little bit later in the show, we're going to be reviewing who voted in favor and also what happens next. But as always, good evening and thank you for joining us. On to the point. I'm Alex Bell, and we're starting with different breaking news tonight. Governor Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff has just been indicted on 23 counts for federal crimes, including fraud and tax crimes. Dana Williamson had her first court appearance this afternoon following her arrest. I want to go ahead and bring in ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen, who is live outside of the federal courthouse in downtown Sacramento tonight. Now, Jeannie, you saw Williamson not only in front of the judge, but also as she was leaving the courthouse. Talk about some of those moments for us.
Yes, Alex, Dana Williamson was still in custody when she appeared before a judge this afternoon, and it was clear she was emotional, even appearing to cry at a certain point. She pled not guilty and has since been released from custody. Now, a couple hours ago, we did catch up with her as she was leaving this courthouse behind me here. Here's what she had to say about the charges filed against her.
No, you guys can contact the attorney.
Matthew Rowan didn't have any additional comments for us tonight. Williamson was arraigned at 2 this afternoon and walked into the courtroom with an oversized gray sweater, glasses, hair in a bun, and handcuffs. Judge Carolyn Delaney read her charges, which include conspiracy to commit bank and wire fraud, obstructing justice, false tax returns, and making false statements. Williamson is accused of being involved in a scheme involving former Health Secretary Xavier Becerra's campaign money. The accusation also involves Becerra's former chief of staff, Sean McCluskey. The indictment says Williamson created false contracts, false tax returns that claimed more than $1 million in business deductions for what was actually personal expenses that include private jet travel, stays at luxury hotels, home decor, and designer handbags. Court documents say all of this happened between February 2022 and September 2024. Now tonight, Becerra's team confirms to ABC 10 that he is public official 1 in that now unsealed indictment in this case. He is currently running for governor and is California's former attorney general. In a statement, Becerra is calling this a gut punch, saying in part, "I have voluntarily cooperated with the U.S. Department of Justice in their investigation and will continue to do so. As California's former attorney general, I fully comprehend the importance of allowing this investigation and legal process to run its course through our justice system." A spokesperson for Governor Gavin Newsom's office tells ABC 10 that Williamson no longer serves the administration, and he expects all public servants to uphold the highest standards of integrity. The governor's office adds that this is a time where the president is openly calling his attorney general to investigate his political enemies, and that it's the American principle of being innocent until proven guilty. Now, Williamson has about 2 weeks to get an unsecured bond of $500,000, which we understand will be her home. Live in Sacramento, Jeannie Nguyen, ABC 10.
All right, Jeannie, thank you so much. And to get more perspective on this case, I want to go ahead and bring in Rich Eisen. He is the editor-in-chief at Capitol Weekly. You probably recognize him from seeing him in the morning with our Mr. Walt Gray. Rich, thank you so much for being here. So talk to me first about Dana Williamson. She served as the governor's, current governor's former chief of staff. For people who may not understand that role and how significant it really is, talk to me about what that position does and what kind of influence and access does a chief of staff really have typically within an administration?
Well, it can vary governor to governor. I mean, when Jerry Brown was governor, his de facto chief of staff was his wife, Ann Gust, and everybody knew that. But of course, the deputy chief of staff was this one, Dana Williamson. Dana was very powerful. She, was known as a very fierce warrior. Certainly, you did not want to get on Dana's bad side. She was definitely somebody that the governor trusted. And, she ran interference on most of his big stuff. I mean, chiefs of staff are incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And put this case a little bit in perspective for us. Are corruption allegations like this unusual in California politics, or is this just a larger pattern that we've seen before?
Well, like this, I would say are fairly unusual. The last one I can
You
remember.
said fairly unusual?
Well, because of the one I remember the closest to this, where this high level of corruption was probably 10 years ago with Leland Yee, when he was in the Senate and, ended up going to jail for 5 years, corruption, gun running, all that kind of thing. We had something a little earlier this year where the incoming Assembly Minority Leader, Heath Flora, we found out he was not living in his district while still taking per diem for travel that he was not doing. I think that's relatively small change compared to what we're talking about in this case with Dana Williamson and the others, which is these are very serious crimes. If they are proven in a court, they could send her in specific to jail.
Yeah, and two other quick questions before I let you go here. The money at the center of this investigation allegedly came from campaign donations. Yeah. What does that mean for the people who contributed, and also just public trust of misuse of funds?
Well, I mean, as far as the donations go, I mean, this was money that was in Javier Becerra's fund. It was kind of a dormant fund, which is why I think probably they were comfortable accessing that. To your second part of that question, I mean, all of this stuff hurts public confidence. I mean, this happens on the same day we had, news about the Epstein emails and the president. I mean, this just goes on and on and on. And we've seen a lot more corruption at the local level here in California in recent years, particularly in Southern California, LA City and county. But all of this just feeds into the they're all bad, kick them all out mentality.
And I got about 20 seconds left. Quick question. Do you think that this case will impact Governor Newsom's administration at all?
They're certainly going to try. I mean, we certainly saw it earlier today already with some of the more conservative outlets. How would they not? Of course, they're going to try. Now, it really needs to be pointed out that all of this alleged activity, happened before she even came to work as the governor's chief of staff. So that's what he's going to lean on, is that he had nothing to do with this.
And separate himself from that.
Absolutely.
Rich, thank you so much. And look, if you do want to read the indictment in this case involving Dana Williamson, it is 34 pages long. We have linked it on our website at abc10.com. All you have to do is just look for this story. All right, back to the news that I was talking about earlier in the newscast. The House passed a funding bill that will end the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. The vote sends the measure, who is expected to sign the bill any minute now. We are waiting for that to come down. The legislation will fund the government through January 30th and provide funding for some government agencies for the remainder of the fiscal year. The House passed the bill by a vote of 222 to 209. 6 Democrats, including California Congressman Adam Gray, voted in favor. Now, Republican Congressman Doug LaMalfa reacts tonight to the bill's passage, saying in part, quote, "This shutdown was entirely avoidable. Senate Democrats refused to act on the House's clean funding bill and instead chose to hold the government hostage for political leverage." President Trump has called the bill a very big victory. Meanwhile, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries expressed strong opposition to the funding package, saying the fight is not over. But now that we are seeing an end in sight for the government shutdown, the question is, how long will it take for things to get back to normal? Officials say that they are hopeful SNAP benefits could be fully honored by the end of the week. The timeline for air travel returning to normal is, of course, less certain. The FAA is still forcing flight cancellations due to air traffic controller shortages. But today, the FAA said the flight cuts will stay at 6% instead of rising to 10% by Friday because more air traffic controllers are coming back to work. New tonight, House Speaker Mike Johnson says that he will bring a bill up for a vote next week to release files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It comes after enough signatures were gathered in the House to force action. Today, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released some emails from Epstein's estate. ABC's Olivia Rubin has a closer look for us.
Today, new questions as House Democrats release bombshell emails showing convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein privately discussing President Donald Trump, telling his longtime accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell that one redacted victim, quote, spent hours at my house with him. In the April 2011 email exchange, according to the documents released by Democrats on the Oversight Committee, Epstein writing, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned." Ghislaine responding, "I have been thinking about that." Now, an unredacted copy of that email given to ABC News by Republicans on the committee show Epstein appeared to reference Virginia Giuffre, a longtime Epstein accuser who died by suicide earlier this year. In 2011, Giuffre was quoted in an article recalling her interactions with Trump, saying, quote, "Donald Trump was also a good friend of Jeffrey's. He didn't partake in sex with any of us, but he flirted with me. He'd laugh and tell Jeffrey, 'You've got the life.'" Giuffre walking that back in a 2015 deposition, saying, "Donald Trump never flirted with me."
Donald Trump could make this all go away tomorrow if he just released all the files.
President Trump has denied all wrongdoing and any knowledge of Epstein's crimes.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong.
Sources tell ABC News the White House tried to prevent House Democrats from releasing the full Epstein files, meeting with Republican Representative Lauren Boebert to press her to remove her support for the measure. Boebert ended up keeping her name on it, which does lock her into place. The White House saying the meeting with lawmakers is a sign of transparency. All right, still a lot more news to get to. Coming up shortly, from paying down debt to rebuilding your safety net, how to get back on financial track after loss of income.
And that storm that we've been talking about all week long is just about here. You see that atmospheric river off the coast, but we are going to see rain within the next few hours. Forecast after the break.
But first, another headlines tonight. The father of a 16-year-old who was stabbed and killed by a regional transit employee is now suing SAC-RT. The stabbing allegedly happened after the teen and the employee got into a fight. SAC-RT says the employee acted in self-defense. The Sacramento County District Attorney says no charges will be filed against the employee. After 238 years, the U.S. Mint produced its last 1-cent coin today. Earlier this year, President Trump ordered the nation to stop making the penny, saying that each one costs nearly 4 cents to create. Other coins, including the nickel, dime, and quarter, will remain in circulation. And an amazing light show in the sky last night. This is the Northern Lights, otherwise known as the Aurora Borealis, sweeping across the country. People from Northern California all the way to Virginia were able to catch a glimpse of the phenomenon.
We are tracking a weather impact alert as the storm moves into Northern California. Let's bring in meteorologist Brendan Minchef. Brendan, I got my boots ready. I'm ready for the storm.
Yeah, it is going to be a soaker in the valley and the foothills. Predominantly rain. We'll see a little bit of snow, but we're also going to have some wind. We've got some wind alerts across the valley starting at 10 o'clock tonight, a wind advisory. Along the coast, a high wind warning also starting at 10 p.m. this evening. But it's not just the wind. We've got a winter weather advisory beginning at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. Winter storm warning down in the southern Sierra. But you also notice we've got a flood watch up here for parts of Lake and Mendocino counties, where we are going to see some very heavy rain. So we'll jump into it. Here's what radar and satellite looks like right now. Some light showers possibly already starting to move through Northern California. These would be pretty light, nothing too significant, but some drops on the windshield. Some of these may not be making it all the way to the ground at this moment, but there is definitely some heavier rain in the not too distant future. We also see some heavier showers up north of Eureka up towards Crescent City, some showers north of Redding towards Shasta, but really the bulk of this storm for now is still offshore. Let's jump into Futurecast here. So through the evening, some very light showers expected, but really the rain's not going to arrive until after midnight ahead of that cold front that's coming in. You see that line of heavy rain, some oranges, some red colors there. By 4 o'clock in the morning, we're going to see that heavy rain moving through the north coast, through the coastal range, and through the Bay Area. By 5:30, 6 o'clock, rain starting to move through Vacaville, Fairfield, the Sacramento Valley. By 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, now we're seeing some heavier rain moving through Sacramento and the San Joaquin Valley. And again, it's all ahead of this front. As this front slowly pushes across Northern California, we're going to see light to moderate rain at first, and then moderate to heavy rain through most of the morning and again at lunchtime. So kind of two waves, one in the morning commute and one through lunchtime. And then this heavy rain just moves into the high country. So we'll still see some showers in the valley through the afternoon, but the focus is going to move up in towards the elevations, and snow really doesn't get going until after about 4 or 5 o'clock once that colder air finally reaches the crest. Rainfall totals have jumped significantly today. We could see 2.5 inches of rain in much of the valley through most of Thursday, and a lot of that is going to fall in the first half of the day tomorrow. You see, we've got that level 2 slight risk for some flash flooding, not just in the valley, but also in the foothills. And snow levels are just so high with this storm, 9,000 feet or higher through about Thursday afternoon before finally they drop towards pass level. But by then, most of that moisture is going to be gone. And finally, we got to talk about the winds. Winds will start to pick up during the 6 to 7 o'clock hour on Thursday morning. Stronger winds, could see some gusts, especially on the eastern side of the Sacramento Valley through the eastern metro. Could see some gusts upwards of 35 to 40 miles per hour. So it is going to be wet and windy with highs only in the mid-60s tomorrow. That weather impact alert will stay showery through the weekend, Alex.
All right, Brendan, thank you. Right after the break, when the paychecks stop, the bills don't. Tonight, financial experts share some moves. Welcome back in. California plans to revoke 17,000 commercial driver's licenses given to immigrants. This is after the Trump administration raised concerns about people in the country illegally receiving licenses to drive a semi-truck or a bus. Governor Newsom, though, says that has nothing to do with it. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said today California's action to revoke the licenses is an admission that the state acted improperly. Governor Newsom's office said the licenses are being revoked because of unspecified violations of state laws that were in place before Duffy tightened the rules, not because the drivers were immigrants in the country illegally. All right, let's get into your price points tonight. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history has really taken a toll on federal workers who've gone without paychecks since the beginning of October, as we've continued to talk about. And whether it's a shutdown in unemployment or any other interruption in income, we know that this can be hard for a lot of people. But here are some tips that experts give us.
An interruption in income can happen for any number of reasons.
It might not be because it was anything you did. You could have been a victim of the shutdown, or maybe you got divorced. There are all kinds of situations that can cause you to get into debt.
And once paychecks resume, experts say to take stock of the situation before making any money moves.
You want to look at what your expenses are, if those have changed over the time that you haven't had income. And you also want to see, maybe most importantly, what you currently owe. So if you've paused payments on loans or on utility bills, you want to see, how far back you are and how much you need to do to catch up.
Personal finance expert Beverly Harzog advises reaching out to lenders about options, especially for credit card debt, which tends to carry higher interest. She says those with good credit may be able to make a balance transfer to pare down payments.
With a balance transfer credit card, you could get a 0% APR, anywhere from 12 to, I've seen about 21 months lately. And you can transfer your debt to that card and then pay it down monthly, interest-free during that trial period.
Elizabeth Ayula, co-host of NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast, says once households regroup from one crisis, it's important to financially reposition in case it happens again.
As we've seen with the current shutdown and financial hardships, emergency funds are so important.
Households that want to get a jump on rebuilding emergency savings and paying down debt, Ayula says, might even consider a temporary side hustle to boost incoming funds.
And here is something to help your family budget. Target is lowering prices on 3,000 items this holiday season. Starting this month, prices on certain food, beverage, and essential items at Target will be reduced. They include price drops on hickory smoked bone-in hams, apples, pie crust, cold medicine, and a lot more. Target also announced the return of its Thanksgiving meal deal. The retailer promotes that its holiday dinner will cost less than $5 per person. The company said its price reductions will continue through December. Target also made a $500,000 donation to Feeding America. The money will help the organization's massive network of food banks provide meals to families in need. We're back after this. All right, before we go, right now, ABC 10, Wells Fargo, and the Athletics are teaming up for our annual Stand Against Hunger campaign, which means now through December 12th, ABC 10 is raising money for 7 local food banks to help feed people in need this holiday season. For a list of participating food banks and how you can help, you can go to abc10.com/standagainsthunger, or look, you can personally email me and my team. We'll be more than happy to send the information over to you. As always, thank you so much for watching and for always inviting us into your home. If you have something you think me and the team should be looking into, you can always email us to thepoint@abc10.com.